New Mexico Interstate Stream Commission. As I think you all know, we're sort of sister agencies. Office of the State Engineer does water rights administration. Interstate Stream Commission has a really broad statute to investigate, develop, preserve, and protect New Mexico's waters. We obviously have a primary mission as being compact compliance, which is maybe the reason that we're here to talk with you today. A tiny bit about myself, since I'm new, I think, to almost everyone here. I'm a native New Mexican. I'm actually a 5th generation New Mexican on my mom's side. My great grandfather was a ranch manager in eastern New Mexico. I left New Mexico for about 20 years, came back to work at Interstate Stream Commission about 10 years ago. I worked for 6 years in the Pecos Basin. And then I served as the deputy director under Rolf Schmidt-Peterson, who retired last year. And as of July, I've been serving in the director role, and so appreciative of your time today. And now John can say a lot about himself, like I said a lot about myself.
My name is John Longworth. I've been working with the agency, both at the ISC and the State Engineer's Office since 1998. I've worked in the Lower Rio Grande, in some facet or another almost since the beginning. I've worked in the Rio Grande Compact as an assistant engineer advisor in the early days. I've been the engineer advisor under the previous governor's administration, and I'm still working on the Lower Rio Grande, although a little bit more quietly. So anyway, it's a pleasure to meet everybody here. I look forward to working with you guys, and hopefully some of my experience can help us solve some solutions. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, folks, so probably know. So I'm Nat Chakris. I'm the general counsel to the state engineer. Been meeting a number of you over the past 6 months or so, and for those of you who haven't met personally, I look forward to getting to know you. And so yeah, I'm a lawyer for the state engineer. I also brought along Sam Walter is a pretty new attorney in our LRG bureau. He's a lawyer who, when he applied to us, he expressed special interest in working on Texas New Mexico issues, and so I'm pulling him in. He's going to be helping hopefully make sure I'm not a bottleneck on sort of the legal issues that I've been working with you all on and will continue to be working on. And he's still getting up to speed, but I'll let him introduce himself as well.
Yeah, my name is Sam Walter. Like Nat said, I'm a new attorney in the LRG adjudication group. And yeah, I'm just really excited to learn and really grateful to be able to meet everyone today.
Liz Anderson, I'm a senior advisor to our state engineer.
Good afternoon, Ryan Serrano. I think most of you, we're all familiar with each other. Been working with the Interstate Stream Commission since October of last year. Prior to that, I was a water master, state engineer water master in the LRG for 16 years, or in some capacity for 16 years, yeah. And happy to be serving in this new role, helping Hannah and the ISC.
Great, Kathy. I'm the district 4 manager for the Office of State Engineer. I've had a lot of different roles in the agency. Started out as a, water resource specialist when I came into the agency, and then moved into the Lower Rio Grande Water Master role for, I think, about 10 years. And moved over to the Tularosa Basin, to the side of the hill, and managed that area for about another 10 years and for 8 years. And then moved into my role as a district 4 manager about 3 years ago, and pleased to be here. Thank you.
Afternoon, I'm JR Hennessy. I'm Craig's deputy district manager. So I work with Craig, focusing on Lower Rio Grande projects. I originally started out as a state engineer in 2007. I was there through about 2011. Left for 10 years. I was a hydrogeologist out of the NASA White Sands Test Facility. Moved into compliance supervisor there. I came back to the state engineer and was actually managing a hydrographic survey here in Las Cruces for the LAP program. And I moved into the deputy district manager position last October.
Thank you all very much for being here. Appreciate you taking the time to introduce yourselves and understand that we have many ways that we can cooperate and collaborate together, and getting to know each other is a great first start. So with that, Mr. Hammond, I'd like to turn the floor over to you and
Great.
let you guide this discussion.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. We're here to advance our relationship together today. We've been talking about a number of things with you in different forums, and
we've got as far as a structured agenda goes, I'm gonna talk about big picture, general things going on in the legislature. Some of the other major, components that really do, illustrate the need for us to work closely together. And also, we'll talk about Interstate Stream Commission issues, the situation of the Rio Grande Compact, the relationship that we have with the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District, and how all of this does really fit together, and how we're gonna continue to work on various projects and programs to make sure that we do operate this system as one unit. It's gonna be really important for us to do that. And then we're gonna talk a bit about the consent decree and kind of how, assuming, and we think there's pretty good odds that it's gonna come down in the state's favor. And we should hear something about that towards the end of May or early June is what we hope to see there. And we talk about those sort of major components about how things will shift in terms of administration of New Mexico. It essentially puts water users in New Mexico fully in New Mexico, instead of in the past where it was kind of under, the state engineer under groundwater administration, and then under Texas Compact for surface water, Rio Grande project operations. And that's going to shift a little bit. To some degree, we'll talk about that. And then we also have John, Ryan, JR, and Craig here to really talk about sort of the work plan that's already underway, under development, that goes with the funding strategies that we asked our legislature to support. So that's kind of what we're here to talk about, but I wanted to make sure that this is an open conversation. We want to have a really good exchange with you all on any of the topics. So it's not a formal presentation by any stretch, and if there's a question that comes to mind, we just want to make sure that we get those out and have full conversation. And I'm glad Bobby could join us too, because I think it's important for us that, as this consent decree comes into play, there's going to be quite a bit of responsibility and work that shifts right on the shoulders of the state engineer's office and the Interstate Stream Commission to address, a new compact delivery point. It will not change the other part of the compact where we maintain the Elephant Butte delivery point from the Middle Valley. Nothing changes in that regard, but it'll be important for, Bobby to understand exactly everything we're up against, so that we can continue to collaborate as we did in negotiating the consent decree. And then on the implementation side, it's going to be critical that we hit our target that's been identified there, and Matt will talk a lot about that at that point. But knowing all this and understanding the situation that the Mother Nature and the operating agreement and everything that occurred in the recent history of the last, let's say, 10, 12, 15 years of our perpetual drought that we're in, we've really, gotten to a point where we're concerned about the health and longevity of the Mesilla Bolson, so to speak, for the sustainability of agriculture and the valley as a whole. So well before that, everybody was concerned about that. There's been a process of, dealing with the adjudication and groundwater administration procedures. Our District 4 folks have been working with you forever on your groundwater permitting issues and all of those sorts of things. But now we got to take it to a new level. We got to put this together with the M&I uses and the potential growth for that in the future. We got to look at all kinds of different sources of supply to see if we can reevaluate that, and we'll talk about the specifics of that here in a while. From those that are looking at it, right on the field and working closely with you all on identifying projects and things that we can hit the ground running on. But knowing all this, we went to the legislature, basically starting when I first got appointed as a state engineer. This was, my staff briefed me on high priority issues that we needed to begin discussing with the legislature, and I started right away. I got appointed right in the middle of the 30-day session, but we got right into it and started talking with our legislative folks, some of the key members that you know and come from your district. On the senatorial side, you got Senator Cervantes and a couple of others that have varying degrees of interest in the water situation here. We also have Representative Small, who's got a prominent position in the legislature as the chair of the House Appropriations Committee. And this year, he's also the chair of the Legislative Finance Committee for the 60-day session, which affords us an opportunity to have more detailed conversations. It's the time of the cycle of the session where it's not just finance issues, it's also policy matters. So we're going to be talking more about a broader water agenda with the legislature going forward during the 60-day session. But through that process, we were able to, particularly during the 2023 60-day session, we were able to, with the help of you all coming in to testify in committee hearings and other work that you did behind the scenes, we were able to garner a lot of support from the legislature. We have two different pots of money. There's 35 million that's set aside under what they call specials appropriations, and those that pot of money has a pretty broad purpose. We can use it for a lot of planning work, investigations, grant applications with various federal grant opportunities. And then they also appropriated a $30 million kind of a capital item that was focused on a water supply, use the term loosely, acquisitions. And that was identified as a pot of funds that would allow us to implement the voluntary water leasing program, and then also set it up to be available to actually acquire any kind of groundwater rights that folks may be interested in selling or utilizing for the purpose of compact administration down the road. So that's just kind of the general purpose of those sources of funds. We also can use all of it as a cost share leverage against anything that the federal government can come to the table with. And I know that the Department of Interior is looking closely at using that IRA funding pot of $4 billion that they've set aside for essentially Southwest U.S. Drought response. And so I understand there'll be an announcement on May 10th from the Secretary of Interior about an allocation to help support us down here for that work. And I think our efforts by the legislature to appropriate those dollars helped influence that decision. Kind of shamed the U.S. into doing what they promised they would do, even though we still don't have a clear ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court yet. They do know that the Rio Grande needs some attention, and that was part of the authority for that $4 billion is that it's for other basins of need, not just the Colorado River, but the Colorado River is certainly going to give a pretty big lion's share of those appropriations, and maybe rightly so. So anyways, those are kind of the areas of work that I do. The other side of my job was to make sure that I really, restore the agency's staffing and technical and programmatic capabilities. Worked hard with my team and the governor's office and the legislature to make sure that we're able to build our team back up to where it once was, back before the Martinez administration. And I think we've been successful in putting together a pretty good work plan and justification. And a lot of it focuses on addressing the settlement implementation down here in the Lower Rio Grande. That was huge. That supported our staffing requests during the 2023 session. In the 2024 session, we were able to get another 27 FTEs to continue building our capabilities down here, and to expand our compliance and other needs throughout the other district offices, and to also address some planning work that Hannah will report about to you guys, because we see knitting together all of the water users in the various regions to develop their own specific needs is a real high priority. From looking at the way state government is managed to the sort of odd capital outlay program where everybody kind of, goes to their representatives and senators to try to get a piece of their pie for various projects, but you can never knit together enough funding to address infrastructure problems in the water world in particular that take a long time to plan, design, and construct. And with my hat on as a Water Trust Board Chair, we see that in the M&I situation, not so much the bigger cities, but certainly the mid-sized communities, smaller communities, and then the mutual domestics struggle mightily with their infrastructure issues. Everything's aging out. You guys know about that with your own system, right? And I'm aging out myself, but that's a huge issue for New Mexico, and we're looking at capital outlay reform so that funding can come into a well-managed system that has everybody sort of on a level playing field in terms of identifying their needs, understanding where they need to take to the future for water security and resiliency, and in some cases redundancy, in order for us to prepare for climate, the impacts of temperature rises. And we can argue about why that's happening, but it is. We've already seen 2 degrees increase on average for New Mexico since the mid-80s. I grew up in Taos. We used to have snow on the valley floor into May, or sometimes you'd see a nice storm that would dump snow in early June even. You just don't see that anymore. So just from an anecdotal perspective, during my lifetime, I've seen, accumulation of high snow. You get a storm and it'll maybe, dump quite a bit even in the valley floor, but it melts away quickly. So there's higher aridity with the rising temperatures, and we're gonna have to fight like holy hell together to prioritize the resources that we do have now. We're in a pretty resource-rich environment with both federal and state dollars. We got to take full advantage of that while we have it to make sure that we're preparing ourselves for just holding ground. Much less are we going to have deeper droughts, more severe droughts. Are we going to see a lot more storm intensity that brings heavy downpours into the valley, that if we're not well prepared to control, capture, reuse that, and if consent decree does go through, if it goes by more than 1,000 CFS at the border, New Mexico does not get credit for any flows above that. So all of these pieces that we need to work on is gonna be all hands on deck here in Doñana County. We gotta have the county, we gotta have Las Cruces, we gotta have, obviously, you guys. We've gotta have, the mutual domestics. We've gotta have the feds, with, you know, I don't know how much BLM land is up here, but there, you know, there's the upland management to control uplands, runoff and sediment coming into the valley. IBWC has an interest in making sure that we're holding stormwater up in the system and using it on our side of the border to the highest extent. And of course, reclamation, you know, they're the Rio Grande project, federal, managers. And so those partnerships at the federal, state level, local level, is absolutely critical for us to, just hold ground and survive, right? That's where we're at, but we also have a big lift in terms of getting our aquifer, and our surface water system working the way it used to, where we're getting good recharge and recoveries of our wonderful resource, the seeable zone, right? That is the lifeblood of you all. You had to turn to it during hard times. We've been in the hard time trench for a long time, and now we got to figure out how to recover that, get things back in balance, get the EP number one, the water that they need down south of the border, and begin to manage our system, dig ourselves out of debit up in the middle Rio Grande, and we have plans for that. And then make sure that we're managing the whole system in a collaborative environment so that we can hold that ground and continue to have some semblance of the agricultural economy and the community, you know, development and growth that is already occurring, and try to figure out how all of us together in that regional management context can make it work. And like we've talked to you about, this all doesn't come on the backs of the farmers. We gotta get everybody at the table doing their part. And certainly the state is stepping up to do theirs, and I think the legislature demonstrated a willingness to make a major down payment, and they know it's a down payment. So we know that they're gonna be interested, but they wanna see what we're gonna do with what they've already given us, and that's what we'll talk a little bit more about here in a minute. So anyways, I'm gonna shut up and turn it over to the people that really know what's going on. And then we can hear from them, but I'm happy to take any questions, you know, before I turn the floor over to you.
So the questions for Mr. Hannon. I'm gonna give you, for
Hi,
instance,
John.
I've got a farm about 20 miles south here, down there somewhere. And there's a dam on BLM just above me. Now, I've known for a while it's gonna breach, and 2 or 3 years ago, sure enough, it breached. Well, my brother owes me some machine time. We'll get the dozer, I'll fix that maybe. I'm a farmer. We think about the cheapest, quickest, easiest way to fix things. Then I heard about Mr. Ludwig's experience doing the same thing. I said, there's the big mistake. So there it sits. You go talk to BLM, and the answer is, no, you can't do anything. I'm not asking for money. Let me go fix it.
Yeah,
But no. So, I mean, what do you do? I'm stuck. So it just sits there breached. So I'm stuck. I realize it's not your department,
sure.
but I'm telling you, this is kind of the way things do is government handcuffs us. Frankly, I told my brother, this is Mexico. I go flip some guy $2,000. He'd say, do anything you want.
Sure.
But it's not the system we live in, unfortunately. Well, it's fortunately and unfortunately.
And I can address that really in the context of when the bureaucrat, wherever is running that particular issue, doesn't know the kind of the overall need and the problem. And there hasn't been, you know, proper hoops that you jump through to do it and all that. If we can get those folks to the table in this context and the way that I'm wanting to approach it would be to, you know, kind of put together a pretty broad group of stakeholders through through a task force approach where we can get people to the table and begin to identify all those resources that are either failed to be maintained, need to be maintained, and who owns them and how we can get to it. And then start patching together all of those resources that may be available to take care of it. And then just keep tackling things and knocking them out and building different infrastructure to capture more stormwater in certain areas. It's a comprehensive, all hands on deck approach. And when people aren't aware of the bigger picture and understand the need for taking care of small, flood control dikes or dams, or they're filled with sediment, they need to be, but when we do that, let's figure out how to recharge that water that's been captured that would make a difference.
Exactly.
Right? Or maybe even put a little operating system on it that will allow it to go into a canal or a drain or something that you guys operate. That's the kind of thinking that we need to generate. And having, a subcommittee of your group with your technical advisors, to work within that context on a technical team with our experts and others from Reclamation and from, NRCS and some of those folks that haven't been, real accountable in recent years because of a lot of factors. And also have some resources that they need to get out on the ground before that money kind of starts to dry up. There's some real good timing to get the right people to the table, get the conversations going, and then get the projects moving. Before time kind of starts to slip away on us. We have about a 5 to 8 year window to really hit this hard. And we have an opportunity and the interest of doing it. That includes you all. So that's my answer.
Yeah,
Long answer to your short
putting
problem.
I'm not putting this on your back,
Right,
but that dike is right on the edge of the valley. It's in the sand hills. I know where the water goes if it ponds up. It goes straight down.
yeah,
Just let me fix it. But no, they're not. I mean, it's a hard no.
yeah.
So I'm just telling you what the problems are.
That's a perfect example of how we need to know where those no's are being said, and then we can use the system to try to get those no's to, well, okay, let's look at it, and then get to yes on it, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, John.
Anybody else?
I had a question. So how is this new proposed meeting of stakeholders any different than the drought resilience team?
The drought resiliency team, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. That's a subset of, what I would call it as more of a technical committee that would feed information into more of an executive decision-making body that would be kind of the group of the task force itself that will be convened by my office. And one of the constraints obviously is what's gonna happen with the consent decree, but we need to get that conversation started. It has already started at different levels, and you'll hear a little bit more about that. There's also this other process that's being kicked off called the Regional Water Planning Initiative. And so the time is right to now form that group. You got to identify who sits on it. Like for you guys, you'll have to decide who do you want to be on the task force, who do you want on the technical committee, who do you want on the legal committee. Those are the kinds of things that we want to do. But that's the way to get the all hands on deck focused on specific projects like you illustrated, and then also what's the master plan and how do we continue to leverage the resources that are coming into the basin the most appropriately. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions for Mr. Hamden?
Adds that, so Joe, as you know, the DRT team is a product team. And what that means is that they are it's gotta be all governmental entities. We have to sign a specific charter. It's still hung up in the core. And then as the monies come in from the feds, that team can help direct to whatever the priority projects are. What Mike's talking about is bringing in a larger community than just basically, state, feds, and local governmental entities. And so I think that's a big difference because we're gonna have a different perspective with a task force kind of approach than we will in a flat road. So,
Right.
kind of like bound by, federal.
Regulations, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Thank you. Friends, when we do it, it's right, like.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt with my. Thank you. So, I might have clicked something that made it disappear. Oh, here we go. Thank you. Sorry, I was just gonna pull up a few slides to speak to here. Oh. Let's see. Okay.
Get accustomed to, I'm a visual learner, the more pictures, the better.
Okay. There we go. Let's see. And is there I assume these are like, no, hold on. Bear with me here. Something to advance this. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, thank you, Mike. Appreciate you teeing this up. These are some slides that I used at Law of the Rio Grande CLE last week in Santa Fe. I'm gonna skip through some of them, and hopefully not be redundant with some of this stuff that Mike shared. Number one, I just want to first off thank you all for your time today. I know you're all really busy individuals, you have a lot going on, and so I appreciate you taking time to come and meet with us. It's huge. Second, I want to say, given everything that Mike just said, we see building a partnership with EBID as a critical path forward. And that's going to require us spending a lot of time with you, hopefully, coming down here more regularly, really listening to you about what your concerns are, figuring out how to problem solve around those things. I think that the challenges that we're facing, including some of the stuff that Mike talked about related to climate change, we won't be able to solve unless we're really listening to water users on the ground. I think you all can identify solutions that we won't. We're in a unique position right now, as Mike said, because there is significant state and federal funding available. And so we want to work with you all in crafting what those solutions look like. And also I want to make it clear, as Mike said, the solutions don't fall on any single water use sector. So we're going to need to be working with ag, with municipal users, with all water users in the Lower Rio Grande to figure out what this all means and how we're moving forward. So certainly there is a real, I would say, commitment to integrating in multiple different ways. One, we, ISC and OSC, are very much integrating in how we're confronting issues across the state, but look, principally here in the Lower Rio Grande as an example. It's so awesome to have our OSC colleagues here. It's been amazing to have Ryan Serrano come on and our team. We've gone from having 2 FTEs to now we're about to be 6 FTEs, 6 full-time staff in the Lower Rio Grande. The purpose there is to support all of the various initiatives, including the DRT work, but also all of the multi-pronged approach that we see as being necessary. It also means there's integrating really in a lot of ways across Lower Rio Grande and Middle Rio Grande. We're really identifying that these problems mean we have to manage this system very much holistically. And so, you know, what we do in the Middle Rio Grande has significant impact down here, and we recognize that. So I wanted to just right off the bat, you know, update you. You all know the Rio Grande Compact Commission meeting is tomorrow. Our debit as of the end of last year is 121,500 acre feet. We picked up almost 30,000 acre feet of debit in the last year. Clearly that means we're taking this situation very seriously, and I'm going to outline for you the various efforts that are underway upstream of Elephant Butte to get more water to Elephant Butte. And then I won't go into the consent decree much, but obviously we're doing a ton of work right now preparing for implementing this regardless of the US Supreme Court outcome. And we can talk more about this later. But largely I wanted to go through the slides that sort of outline what the state's commitments are. And some of this Mike already spoke to a little bit, but I think it's helpful in the framework of sort of the upper Rio Grande, middle Rio Grande, and lower as they're divided in New Mexico. In the upper Rio Grande, I think what's really important to note is that we and largely Office of the State Engineer has done an incredible job of ensuring no increased depletions from 1929 levels. That is a major effort. It takes a lot of work on both our part and primarily out of the District 6 Office of the State Engineer. They do a great job administering water in the upper basin, and that's a critical component of our work that we're committed to and is ongoing. The other piece that I think is really worth highlighting for you all is that this team at the Office of the State Engineer has been really focusing in on Indian water rights settlements and looking at those settlements as mechanisms to lock in shortage sharing. So for example, the settlement that was just reached on Okeawinge looks at the whole Rio Chama and sort of figures out in times of shortage, what does that mean? And how is that the various water users, not just the tribal water users, how are they committing to shortage sharing in those conditions and locking that in through the settlement process? We also, as this slide says, in this year's legislative session, received $20 million to support Indian water rights settlements. So again, a real commitment at the state level to implement those. And as you all know, the next thing that's coming in terms of Indian water rights settlements, it's a big one, is 6 Middle Rio Grande Pueblos. And that is something that we're gearing up to focus on heavily. And I won't go into a lot of detail on that because other staff here could comment on that. And I welcome anyone here, if there's something I missed that you want to jump in on, please do that. And also for you all, if there's questions as I go through this, feel free to interject. I really would love this to be as interactive as possible. This slide actually has the typo in it because there's actually 29 million in the last 2 years legislative sessions dedicated to Middle Rio Grande efforts specifically. What I would say on that is, you know, many decades ago, coming out of the 1950s, there was serious effort, particularly at the federal level, to do channel work in the Middle Valley. It's also when the low flow conveyance channel was built. Those were critical components, both the low flow and the channel work, in digging us out of the hole we were in from a compact standpoint at that point in time. We are mounting up for something similar, maybe not quite that scale, but certainly significant in the Middle Valley between us and Reclamation. It's a really great partnership working with Reclamation, and we're looking at that whole part of the basin pretty holistically in terms of where there's effort needed to realign the channel. We're cooperating partner on Reclamation's effort on the lower Santa Cacha reach, so the river reach just above Elephant Butte. Major work is needed there, and they're mounting up for essentially realigning that entire channel to improve river conveyance. Separate from that, at our March Interstate Stream Commission meeting, we entered into a cooperative agreement with Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District with the idea that between the state and the district there, we could have a little bit more agility, not get caught up in some of the prolonged federal issues that you're flagging here, to do some work in more like the Isleta reach. So I think we're all committed to do the work with Reclamation, but we're also seeing that there's a greater need than just in that lower Santa Cacha reach. And so we're being creative with the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District and identifying how we can do some of that channel work between the state and the district. We're also, of course, partnering with them and Reclamation and really looking at the low flow, implementing a monsoon flow study so that we can collect some data on potentially reoperating that. I think, as you all know, the Reclamation installed some gates on that, so it can now actually drain back into the river instead of out into that giant ponded area to the west, which we see as a great success and tease up the potential for us to really get that low flow conveyance channel operating again and have it essentially as one of many tools in the toolbox. There's no single fix to these challenges, but we need to build in sort of as many options to operating the system as possible. And then we're also using that money to look at partnering with Army Corps on levee work that's needed. Those levees that are in need of repair not only address flood control issues, but also in high flow events, help keep the water in the river channel. So a bunch of things happen, a lot of work underway in the Middle Valley in order to sort of think through conveyance issues. All of that is in the context as well of ESA commitment. So we have, you know, numerous ESA issues in the Middle Valley that we have to be taking into consideration. And honestly, I think in large part, there are certain sections of the river where we could improve habitat and other areas where we can improve in conveyance. We could be doing better on both if we're being strategic and thoughtful about it. So again, lots of stuff happening in the Middle Valley. And then, of course, down here, as Mike outlined, significant investment financially from the legislature in the 2023 session. And again, thanks to those of you who helped lobby for that funding. And as Mike said, we really think that funding is what sort of pushed the feds to make some funding available as well. As you all know, we kind of mounted up pretty quickly a groundwater conservation program that was sort of the continuation of the pilot program. Our team did an amazing job, you know, having listening sessions, really listening to folks down here. I hope we'd love to hear more from you all. Trying to get cover cropping in place. But really that was just the quick first thing that we needed to do. We know that a lot more is needed. We have the money to do it. And as Mike has said, it's really going to be a multi-pronged approach. I think between us and our excellent partners at Reclamation, where there's a lot of things that can move fairly quickly. But I think in terms of the long-term fix, we need buy-in and engagement from the stakeholders through something like the task force that Mike mentioned in order to develop those solutions. And again, fortunately, we have the funding to make that possible. And so I guess I would say, oh, and maybe the other thing on that is just clearly, again, no single approach. It's going to be a multi-pronged approach. It's going to have to involve, you know, investigating stormwater management issues, brackish water, conservation, you know, certain component of leasing or fallowing, across the board, many solutions to make it happen. And then last, I'll skip through this. Just wanted to highlight for you all, I think you know, in the 2023 session, the legislature passed what's called the Water Security Planning Act. It was an entire rewrite of New Mexico's regional water planning statute. The original statute passed in the 1980s and was considered to sort of largely have met its purpose. This statute was a recommendation of the Water Policy and Infrastructure Task Force. So the task force that Mike Hammond convened, it's this report on the far left there in 2022. That task force recommended that the state revisit regional water planning and set up a better process for regional water planning that was better suited to meet the challenges that we're facing. And so it basically has tasked us at Interstate Stream Commission with re-envisioning the entire thing, including the delineation of the regions themselves, the process for, you know, what requirements there are for planning entities, the planning process. We are taking all of this year to collect public input on what this needs to look like, including open house events that will be in each of the existing 16 water planning regions. I think the open house in this area is July 24th. I have a flyer. I can hand it out to you guys in a minute. There'll also be a web platform. All of the content at the in-person open houses will also be online, and then there will be even additional content online. We're trying to hear from as many people as possible, so we really encourage you all to weigh in and to get your communities to weigh in. The idea is to have in place by early next year rules and guidelines that would sort of govern how regional water planning looks moving forward. And to a certain extent, you know, the future of sort of solutions that might be crafted in this region might come through that planning process, starting in the next few years. And I'd ask Dr. King too, if he wants to comment in any way on that. And then last, just, you know, wanted to really emphasize again how important it's going to be for us to work together and for us to listen to you all and figure out what solutions make sense. And I don't know if I'm missing anything else. I'll look to my team here. Anything you want to add in? All right. So, and with that, like, I welcome any questions that you have, or Dr. King, if you want to comment on the planning or otherwise.
Well, I would just add, you know, she started with the leap ahead analysis, the climate change study, and I participated in that. And then with the water task force with Liz Anderson and Mike and Hannah were both very heavily involved in that. And this water planning effort, I think you know, there are a lot of recommendations that came out of the task force, but I think this is the one that really is going to have a major impact on the way we run water 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now. And so absolutely positively, we need to, the district needs to participate in that like they participated in the early 2000s regional water planning, which, you know, we were very much all in on that one. We really need to be all in on this one.
Thanks.
How do you see that process? As, Dr. Kim was alluding to, transforming the way we manage water. How do you see that process really changing from the status quo to something different? What does something different look like?
Well, I mean, I think, a couple of things. First, a few key distinctions that are really relevant in terms of this statute, and maybe I'll go back to this slide really quick. First, the statute really tasks the state with supporting water planning with the best available science data and models. So we're gonna have to work really carefully with the technical teams, including your all's technical teams, to make sure that the planning process is well informed in terms of the hydrologic reality. The second thing that's really important is that this statute tries to link, better link planning with implementation. So, you know, the common complaint, I think, that we've heard about regional water planning, and New Mexico's done 2 rounds of regional water planning, is that people put a lot of effort into these plans and then they weren't implemented. And part of the problem with implementing them is that there's been a number of issues, but one of the main ones was that there was no prioritization coming out of the regions for what were like the top things that needed to be funded or implemented. And that way everyone just dumped all of their recommendations into these plans. In 2018, we did a roll-up of all of the previous 2 years. In 16 and 17, we updated all of the regional plans. That roll-up had like, I forget what it was, 4,000 projects worth like $5 billion or something in it with no prioritization. And so the legislature just looks at that and they're like, well, we don't know what to do with that, right? So this statute requires the regions to prioritize their recommendations for state funding, and the legislature really liked that. I mean, we recognize that this will be challenging because, you know, we don't want to pit Aztec against Farmington about which project is most important, but it's really going to force the planning entities to think through what's most critical to fund and then make recommendations in their plans for funding. Interstate Stream Commission is tasked by the statute to report annually to the legislature on those priorities, both on the planning process itself, but on what the priorities for funding are coming out of the regions. And so the hope is that that will really do a better job of tying the planning process to implementation. And then the other thing that I would say that has the potential to transform how water is managed is that the statute calls out active water resource management, AWRM, as an option for regions to engage in through the planning process. And so, you know, basically that provides an opportunity for local stakeholders to work with the Office of the State Engineer to develop alternative management schemes that could be agreed on collectively, and then the state could administer to those. So, you know, obviously we have a prior appropriation system. The state can administer by priority. But to the extent that the planning process provides a framework by which local parties could identify alternate management schemes that more align with their values and yet also address the shortages, we see that as being really beneficial and as something that could come out of this planning process. And I don't know if others want to add.
Can I add something on that?
Please, man.
Thank you. So I'm sort of the more of the grim realist on stuff. In terms of reaching an alternative administration arrangement, which is effectively a settlement of how a priority call would go, party needs pressure on them. They need to have an alternative that'll be uglier than the do nothing option. And you all, I think, in the Lower Rio Grande, we've already got plenty of pressure to push us into that. I'll be talking about that a little bit later. We'll, I hope, go into closed session. I think that what Hannah's talking about in terms of the water planning is in terms of getting people to move into an alternative administration. Like, how are we going to curtail people when there's not enough water? we all know, and we're gonna talk through some specific scenarios under which, there's gonna have to be curtailment here. And those discussions, I think, I hope, the task force that Mike's hoping, to stand up will be complementary to this, but those will be likely some confidential, settlement negotiations that the parties will be able to swap sort of, the major stakeholders will be able to swap some, proposals that have already been put out there in the past. I mean, it's not like people haven't been thinking about this. And once there's sort of some frameworks we can start working in on, what I'm hoping is that the water planning, which will not be a confidential process, would be a place to socialize and get broader buy-in to what we'd be negotiating. We can't negotiate sort of resolution of litigation, I don't think really effectively in a water plant setting. It's just anybody can walk in, listen to everything everybody's saying and there's nothing we can do about it. But what we can do is make whatever we do settle on, and I hope we are able to settle a lot of our differences, make that the goal for the region, and then have the planning process say, okay, this is where we're going to get to. Everybody, let's talk about what we all need to put in place in order to make that the most successful thing possible. So we're a little different in the Lower Rio Grande because we already have been thinking about and talking about how shortages need to be managed. We haven't gotten agreement there yet, but I think we're gonna be working hard on that. So we don't need the pressure of, in the planning process, what we're planning on doing elsewhere is saying, okay, here's all your demand and here's your supply, and it's less. So why don't you start thinking about ways you might want to work on this? We were there 20 years ago here in the Lower Rio Grande, and I think so. The planning process generally is going to be helpful in moving us in moving that conversation forward elsewhere. But here, I think we're going to be kind of doing hopefully more sleeves rolled up kind of negotiation on those management issues, and then use the planning process to build that out. Okay, what kind of projects do we need the planning process to endorse in order to make this a possibility? That's at least the way I see it.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. So that would be a change, trying to involve how are we going to administer water in dynamic and unpredictable future water conditions, and then what sort of projects would support that?
Yes, we got to solve it.
2 questions. Is the OK Wingate settlement available to the public yet?
Yes, it is.
Okay, can I get a copy of that?
Yeah, and if it's not on our website, I apologize. It should be, but Mr. Chair, I will make a copy available to you.
I was provided a copy by accident.
Okay.
I don't want to go and try and find that. It wasn't legal at the time.
Okay.
So I'd like to just get a copy of that because it is somewhat in the direction we'll be heading. But second question, timeline. Can you talk to the board a little bit about what your timelines are for the various parallel tracks we'll be running for water planning and settlement discussions?
What you're talking about, Mr. Chair, I'll let you talk about the planning timeline, and I'll give you mine after.
Sure. So the planning timeline is, this week, we started these open houses I mentioned earlier that we're having in all of the existing 16 regions. Those will run through August.
Can you tell them when ours is? Because I have it on my calendar.
Yeah.
July something.
Yeah.
Until July 24th.
I don't have enough of these, but yeah, 24th. There you go.
I have it on my calendar. I don't remember.
I don't, and the specific locations are posted on our website, not on this flyer. I'm not 100% sure that we've pinned down the location here yet, but you could look at the website. The website is mainstreamnm.org, mainstreamnm.org. The web interface, so I mentioned earlier, all of the content at these open houses will also be available online. That web interface doesn't launch until June, but you can sign up on that website for a notification once it launches. Those open house meetings are initial engagement and input on the web interface from the public on what this planning process should look like. They will close in August. Our goal is then to release draft rules and guidelines. So the act calls for both rules and guidelines, and the reason for that is that the rules are a little bit more locked in stone, we'll go through a formal rulemaking process, which I'll get to in a second. The guidelines can be adjusted by our commission, by the Interstate Stream Commission, so it provides us a little bit of an opportunity to implement and iterate and learn if we need to. The goal is to this fall, by October-ish, release the draft rules and guidelines for public comment. We'll hear back from folks, make some adjustments as necessary, and then by the end of this year or January of next year, initiate official rule promulgation, which is another opportunity for public comment. So essentially, there's 3 different moments where the public can comment on what this needs to look like. And the reason that we're doing that, and we've had a number of people say to us, why didn't you just do rule promulgation and be done with it? We felt like how this lands has the potential to be in place for decades to come. The last statute was in place since 1987. We really want to get it right, and we want to like hear from people and thinking through how to get it right. So we're building in this very robust process. The goal then and the timeline would be to initiate the rule promulgation by early next year, and by spring of next year have rules and guidelines in place, which again would redelineate the regions. So we don't even know what the regions will look like necessarily. From there, we won't have the ability to stand up a planning process in every single of the new regions at the same time. So we're gonna have to phase them and make some decisions about where to start. But certainly this is a critical area of the state. And then the idea would be to have the planning process be more continuous, not something that gets picked up every decade or so and then put down, but something where we're revisiting the regions on a regular cycle and they're happening in a phased way. And then we're thinking through really carefully how to integrate those regional plans into the state planning process, which is on a 5-year cycle. So hopefully that helps answer your timeline question.
And, again, thank you, Mr. Chair. To answer sort of the timeline for what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna talk a little bit more in closed session. But what I hope, and there's just not enough, bandwidth on anybody's part to move these things as fast as they should. And we're some of the worst offenders, I'm a hold up on a lot of things. The way I'm hoping we can kick off another round of discussions about alternative administration. We've gotten feedback from you all, or, from EBID, as well as a number of other users on our draft district-specific regulations, i.e. this is how we'll manage in curtailment if there is no settlement among the parties on management of groundwater in New Mexico. It's not a pretty scene. We don't like it. You don't like it. Nobody likes it. We just feel like we're charged by sort of with the adjudication orders and the statutes in place. This is what it's going to look like. We have taken a lot of the feedback we've gotten to heart to try to sort of make it a little bit more manageable, if that's what we end up having to do. I was hoping you'd have that in your inboxes before we came down here. We had a few last minute issues we wanted to make sure we're comfortable with internally. So that's going to come imminently, as well as an invitation for your technical experts to be engaging directly with Blue Groundwater to look at the generalized hydrologic analysis, the model that would be used in conjunction with the regulations. And then when we're expecting a decision by June from the Supreme Court, yea or nay on the consent decree, that'll let us know what the landscape is that we're gonna have to negotiate, a resolution of groundwater in. And we'd like, once that Supreme Court decision comes out, again, either way, we'd like to really open discussions on, okay, how are we gonna manage in the time shortage on groundwater in New Mexico? Again, that's pending folks, availability in terms of their technical experts, in terms of their attorneys, in terms of the principals deciding how they want to do this. But I'd like to get that going as soon as we got a Supreme Court decision. Continue to work on the DSRs to make them as good as they can be if there's no settlement, understanding they're gonna be bad. I mean, it's not a good scene if we don't have a managed way of reducing uses during times of shortage. So that's my hope in terms of the timing.
Thank you, Nat.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions for either Nat or Hannah or Mike? Mike, is there anything else you'd like to cover before we go into closed session?
That's what
I'm gonna do, like a presentation.
Okay, all right. Nothing to add.
Anything else from the board before we go into closed session?
We're talking about some of the bellowing.
Just slow, please.
I'm not talking about some of the, like your bellowing stuff, but we can do it in closed session, or can I do it right now, or I don't know. Or who would I direct that to, or?
Hannah.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
well, I just have a few questions. You know, we farm south of here. And, I mean, we're at what, this is the 4th year of the program, or how long have you guys been doing the felling program?
We're in the pilot program was 3 years. This is year 1 of full-blown program.
Okay, all right. And then I don't know, as far as like the acres you guys have been, so when you started till today, how are you coming on felling acres?
So,
I'll defer to Ryan,
Yeah.
all the data, the different.
so, you know, when we started, approximately, we had somewhere in the range of 1,600 acres. I don't remember the exact number. That was the first year, and that was for a 12-month lease. And then the second round of the pilot, we did an 18-month lease, and we increased, a little bit up to about 2,400 acres. That 18-month second term was then extended by 6 months, so it was a total of 2 years. And that was mainly because we had some available funds to do that, right, before they expired. And then now, coming into the first round of the football program, we have just a little bit over 3,000 acres. And that's for a 2-year term that started in January of this year.
I guess, what are you guys hoping to achieve? Are you trying to gain a certain amount of acres every year, or? I mean, 3,000, is that a good number, or are you trying to?
I think it's an excellent number from my perspective, just, given where we started, you know, that it's a new thing. We really used the pilot to kind of learn a lot about what the market would bear and what a fair price would be for all the different types of operations, you know, no one farm is the same. So the fact that we've been able to build on all those lessons learned is important. I think it's a success. No specific target, that I'm aware of. But we're just trying to continue to build on that success and learn more of what's important to the farmers in terms of, you know, we can do more under different conditions, right? So we really plan to try to adapt and change the program as we understand more about the Lower Rio Grande system and what works.
And I would just add to that, I agree and really appreciate this team and pulling off that effort last year to get those 3,000 plus acres enrolled. We recognize that it's a start, you know, that as I said earlier, we look at it as almost like a bridging as we develop a full and much more robust slate of solutions. To the extent that we're working towards a purchase program, as Mike spoke to, some of our funding is available for that, but we really want to consult with you all and others about what that would look like. And in the meantime, build on the fallowing program, that's the leasing program.
Mr. Chair, if I could talk a little bit about the target. So, I was gonna talk a little bit about this in my presentation. I don't think it's something we need to do in the closed session, but I can talk a little bit more about it there. But right now, we've modeled how much New Mexico needs to reduce its groundwater pumping by in order to, we think, meet the index that will be in the consent decree. And this is all modeling. And that would be a little under 7,000 acres is what we think would be necessary to be done if all of those reductions were to come out of agriculture, which we don't want that to be the case. And one of the lessons we learned with our compact issues on the Pecos River, we just went out, we just started buying up farms, you know, and you've heard, we actually think on balance, that was a success. I mean, we have some, you know, viable agricultural districts there that are succeeding, and we don't worry about the compact anymore on the Pecos. But we got too much land. We took too much land out of irrigation. We have a big surplus that we're not allowed to, you know, monetize, a compact surplus. And, you know, this land's been permanently taken out of production. And so we do not want to do that here. And if the consent decree is implemented, if the index is put in place, we're going to start getting real data, not modeled results about how we're performing in terms of delivering to the state line. It's going to inform, you know, where are we, you know, able to get some more water in terms of the infrastructure projects we want to do, in terms of other sources, so that purchasing will permanently, groundwater rights, is not sort of just a default, and we don't do any more than is absolutely necessary. So it's, if all the depletion reductions were to be achieved through purchase of groundwater rights, we think it would be, 6,700 acres, something like that. But that is not the approach we're taking.
Thank you, Nat. Thank you, Hannah.
So about 18,000 acre feet.
Right. And Texas had a different view of that, but again, we're where we're at in terms of consent decree, and they said, just give us an index and meet it however you need to, and so that's sort of, we're trying to be flexible.
Paul, James, did you have something?
Well, I was gonna say, I don't know how it affected the PACUS. What I would be more concerned about is if you permanently buy properties, the overall health of the community. I mean, where we're at, like where I'm at down there, we're 10 miles, 15 miles south of Las Cruces. And there's still a good mix of row crops and trees. And the thing that I kind of worry about is basically who the state would be targeting on this situation. You're gonna have a lot of lower income farmers, young farmers, it's kind of contradicting. You go to the NRCS or FSA, they're trying to get young guys to farm. Well, if you take out the young farmers who are barely getting started with these programs, it's really a tough situation. So I think you gotta be really careful who you're targeting in this situation.
Yeah, I would just say I totally agree, and I think that we're lucky in that we have a lot of lessons learned from the PACOs. And one of the things that I've offered up recently and talked to my colleagues on the PACOs, who, as I mentioned earlier, I worked on the PACOs for 6 years initially, about the potential of getting together a little brainstorming lessons learned focus group almost with those folks and you all and others down here to really think that through, because they saw some of those issues actually occur kind of as Matt discussed in what we did there. And so there's lots of opportunities for us to learn from that and look at it differently.
Jerry, you have something?
Thanks. I have a concern similar to James's concern is, are you trying to just gather up 7,000 acres of fallow land? Or are you trying to look at where the fallow land would be in relationship to our delivery system? Have you ever thought of that? Because my issue is, we're having open line canal system, so if you have a vast amount of fallow land between where you're trying to deliver water to, well, yeah, that might help you, but it's not helping me deliver to the farmer that needs it downstream. Especially if you don't have a land management plan and we're continually having to weed control and maintain the canal while we're trying to work with you. And so I'm just wondering, do you have that in mind at all, or are you just trying to gather fallow land?
No, absolutely. I'm smiling because I didn't say it in answer to your previous question, but that's a big lesson learned from the PACOs, because we work pretty closely along with Reclamation with Carlsbad Irrigation District. They have major issues in their system now because there's gaps, and yet they need to deliver water to the end of the line. And so being thoughtful about, there's a number of things that we need to be thoughtful about, but certainly, Gary, that's one for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And also, it's important where we're focusing our attention on getting better recharge, so it does build it in the appropriate place for better, more efficient deliveries down to the index too, right? So all of those factors come into play, and we'll be keeping that in mind as we work with everybody to design the right program.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate this discussion and the idea of how solutions, can intertwine in a holistic way with the existing needs to deliver water and the needs to reduce depletion. John?
Mr. President, Mr. Stallone was telling me about his idea about a possible partial solution.
Well,
All right.
I don't want to wear you guys out.
No, we're ready.
Well, and I've just been living with it because I got neighbors and, and so, on this board right now, Henry has a little bit, he's the only board member that has any fallow land. Myself personally, I would like to fallow some land. I don't really like the way, I feel like, in my opinion, this is targeted to a landowner situation. And in our valley, most of your row crop land is rented. I don't know the numbers, but I'd say of open land, maybe 3/4 of it is actually rented land, so a landowner is maybe here locally or maybe in Michigan or wherever. So in my opinion, I want it to be more targeted to the farmer. And I feel like right now it's more to the landowner. And if you are a farmer and a landowner, it works really well because like I was spoke to Greg yesterday, I had a little problem with like, need to know like the warranty deed and stuff like that. So like with FSA through programs of, subsidies and things like that, they go directly to the farmer. I don't know exactly why we would have to have like warranty deeds. Is there any way for you guys to coordinate with FSA to show that myself as farm to farm for 30 years, nobody's trying to pull a fast one, they just swooped in and got some property and trying to get state money. In trying to make this thing a little bit more flexible, where you can get in and out a little easier. I almost want to use the whiteboard here, but I'll show you guys. So if I have a 300-acre farm and I want to fallow 50 acres, 1 year. 1 year works better for me because it helps me to keep my, 2 years is tough, so, but if I can take 50 acres and continually rotate fallowing around, it kind of could become rotation for me in a way where I can just leave the ground and lay idle. When I was a little kid, they used to have a set aside program through FSA or whatever, and so my dad would set land aside. And then when you come back to farming, the ground was really fertile. So something to that, I think 2 years for me, I have a hard time with, and then also having to do through, I just like to be a little bit more, however we could work it, where it'd be a little bit easier to get into it. I think that would help you guys. If you want to get more acres, I think that would help you. I mean, I talked to, Preston farms a lot of rented land. I farm a lot of rented land. It would make life a lot easier for guys like us. That's why we have not participated, honestly.
It's really helpful to hear that feedback, and I think we're looking at just continually improving this program. So, and to make it work, it needs to work for the farmers. None of us are currently farming, or maybe some of you, a little bit. So that feedback is really helpful, and I would say, we should brainstorm with you as we look into the future and others about what that looks like. And feel free to reach out to Ryan or myself anytime on that.
Mrs. Solvay.
Let me help bridge a gap. One of the problems they've had that we complained to DFA about for you was the regulations are set up because anti-donation, procurement, all of those laws you guys are grappling with now, they have to comply with those too to give you money. Because they can't give you something of value without showing proper exchange. So without having to get appraisals and all this extra BS, they had to run some of those traps. So bridging that gap, it's not totally their fault that the program looks the way it does. Other state agencies got involved.
Yeah.
Thank you
We
for
can
that.
definitely we can make them.
I didn't mean it's your fault either, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, and we've been, it's good comments because one of the things that you said, working with EBID with the renter, not the landowner, is actually something we've done for a long time, but none of us have ever made that comment because it has not come from staff as far as thinking that direction. But anytime, for example, we went to them and said, you need to allow water for a cover crop at least. This program isn't working because it doesn't allow a cover crop. They changed that. So very good comment though.
Can I ask a question? Please. And I thank you, Mr. President. Is this on a combination of private land and state land, or is it?
It'd be only private land.
It's only private land, that's right.
And so when this, again, we all have the things we're most familiar with. I'm most familiar with my backyard. James familiar with his. And so as I was thinking through this, idle land is not eligible for the program. You're not looking for idle land. You're looking for farmland that's now not going to be farmed.
Correct.
If a non-farmer landowner has non-idle land, there's a partnership with a farmer that made it eligible. Either one of them can't do it without the other. The farmer could not have grown the crops without the land they leased from the landowner. The landowner can't participate in the program if their land's been idle. So how do we move away from this idea that it's, a smaller portion of the easily fallowable, the stuff that they can work into an ordinary business plan? How do we work that when, perhaps 3/4 of it is actually a partnership between two entities? James?
If I could make one comment, I think what you guys could see too is I think your 3,000 could fall off. Because at least the farms that I know next to me, people have enrolled in these programs, but they're gonna have to come out eventually. And a lot of these guys probably are gonna have a hard time finding a farmer. or they were an owner operator and they kind of let all their stuff deteriorate. So I think to be viable, it needs to have a shorter, like a 1-year program. And maybe that way it could be a farmer's tool. You could use it as one of the tools that you have to help you succeed in this tough situation. But I do think you could see, without some tweaks to the program, I do think you might see it fall off. At least when I'm looking at my neighbors around me, because they've already been in the program, they're gonna have to come out of the program. I don't see anybody else gonna get in the program beside me, you know, at least next door at least, you know what I mean? So.
Thanks for that, and I would just plant a seed for you all to help us think. And I think the conversation that we're starting to have with communities across the state, particularly like ag districts, is, you know, how do we set up systems whereby we can adjust water use based on available supply. So like balance, you know, bring acreage in and out of production based on hydrologic indicators, right? And do that in a way that works from an administrative standpoint at the Office of the State Engineer and works for farmers, right? Because if there's water available, great, let's use it. But if there's not, and we have, you know, we need it to get to the state line, we gotta figure out how we build in those knobs to the systems that we're operating. And you guys are gonna be the ones who will know like what will work from the farmer.
When you get to 10,000 acres in 1 year, you'll know, hey, I hit a sweet spot. We gotta change some rules, you know what I mean? So.
Thank you. Thank you very much. John, you had a comment.
One of the things I realize is, relevant to this is it takes twice as much money to administer a 1-year program as a 2. So I don't know if there's a hybrid program. You do sound like somebody like James, okay, you have 50 acres this year and 50 acres there next year, but you're still under the same contract.
Right.
That might cut the administrative cost. Is there other idea is, and I think he's right, is give part of the money to the operator and part to the landowner, because this operator now is losing a piece of his income. So, I mean, I don't know how to structure this. I'm just saying that I think his comments are relevant.
This is an excellent conversation. We should just come brainstorm with you guys more.
Because they do need each other. The landowner and the farmer, they need each other. Randy?
In my instance, down in the north, I don't get in that program. Me and my brothers farm a little over 1,500 acres together. I have the woman all under my name. I take care of it. To make our deal work with Brian and still in state engineers, I was going over the 4.5 every year. So we figured out I had to leave out roughly 50, 60 acres every year on my rotation. That program wouldn't work for me because the land I leave out, I don't leave it, I want to leave it out for 2 years. I want to come to it next year. But if you put it in that program like that, I can't do the rotating to get to it. So, you know, in that instance, that doesn't work for me.
Right, I think there's ways we can address at least some of these, and Sam flagged, there's some hard constraints on our end, but I think there's some things that we could brainstorm and.
Another point on water distribution is, we do have a lot of idle land here primarily because of the drought, and farmers, have just not been able to irrigate with surface water to the back of the drought. But what happens if we do get a supply of water in storage and the allocation goes up to 3 or 3 feet? How can your program work if it's been idle and then all of a sudden that farmer says, well, now I can water for 8 months out of the year, I can grow a crop or rent my land to a farmer that would grow it. What have you done to look at taking that idle land and putting it into the program for that benefit of having a water supply to irrigate with?
I can't speak to that, to this part of the state. I don't know if others have comments on that, but I think, Gary, that's the concept I was talking about with like the knobs, right? How do we be creative about building in those knobs so that we can, you know, meet our obligations, but also, you know, not, as Nat was talking about, like permanently fallow land if it's not necessary, but strike the right balance there. I don't know, Ryan, did you want to add?
I'll just briefly, Gary, I think there's other opportunities for those situations, right? So when water is available, you know, we've heard this board talk about utility of water, and the importance of that. And I think in terms of fallow and idle land, when water is available, surface water supply, we can be creative and think about maybe not directly put it out for production, which it's important, that's a component, but there's also other uses for it, right? Maximize the utility for recharge or other purposes, right? I think we're right on the same page.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan. John,
I have a question. So if a piece of land is in one of these programs already, it comes out, is it eligible to put back in the next program? But if so, it hasn't been farmed. That's, I mean, it's been left out once. Can you put it in the program again?
Right now, yes.
Okay.
It qualifies for participation if it was in a new round, if it was participating previously. That could change, like
Yeah.
we're talking about it, we're trying to adapt the program as we learn more, so.
You know, the guys around this table are all big successful farmers. Well, sort of successful.
That's a loose term.
Yeah, we're using the term loosely. James is kind of concerned about some of the guys that are either small farmers, scraping by, just getting started, whatever. And legitimately so. So that's where he's coming from.
thank you. Mr. Franzo, you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, my family farms thousands of acres. Similar comment to James and Randy. They like that rotation. I made similar comments to John when he was in Hatch that, being able to use surface water with that soil, kind of keeping that soil alive is very healthy for farmers. And so I think you guys have made leaps and bounds with that, allowing surface water, allowing, cover crops on there. But, yeah, I think continuing this discussion, similar to what James and Randy are saying, I think you'll get more buy-in from, my family and stuff, and we have enrolled some in the program, but we'd be open to enrolling a lot more if we have that flexibility. So I agree with that.
Thank you, Joe. So with that, I know there's some more things we want to cover. We have a hard deadline this afternoon. Mr. Hammond, please.
I have some information to share. The Colorado contingent is on its way here, so I was wondering if we could have like a break to have, introductions for them when they come.
Absolutely.
Before we go into executive session.
Their ETA?
Or, let me find out.
They were gonna, they're heading to see Dan before the film.
Well, she said they're coming now. Okay. Let me just, I'll step out and call me.
Okay.
Get it straight.
And so for those that aren't aware, we have contingency from the Colorado Compact Commission that will be coming.
15 minutes.
Okay. I think probably what we'll do is we'll get started and we'll simply recess to come back to that. So with that, I'll take a motion to go into closed session. I have a motion from Mr. Garai, seconded by Mr. Holtzman to go into closed session. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We are in closed.
Signing in.
All right, we are in open session. I would like to welcome you to Elton Irrigation District. My name is Greg Gavier. I'm a con farmer of the Mesilla Valley and current president of Elton Irrigation District's Board of Directors. So welcome. We don't have a seat. I will do some brief introductions. Hannah.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'm excited to introduce a bunch of staff, largely from the Interstate Stream Commission. Maybe we can go around and you can say your name and position, please, and stand up. Or, yeah, Chris, sorry.
Hi, everyone. Chris Shaw from the New Mexico Interstate Stream Commission, legal counsel to the New Mexico Compact Commissioner.
Cindy Stokes, New Mexico Interstate Stream Commission. I'm the assistant engineer advisor for the New Mexico Regional Compact.
Good afternoon, Grace Haggerty. I'm a manager on the Rio Grande Bureau as well with the Interstate Stream Commission, mostly doing endangered species work. And we have some nice wind out there today. Oh my God, it's so windy today. In Albuquerque too. I'm Paige Pegram. I'm the Rio Grande Basin Manager for the Interstate Stream Commission and the Engineer Advisor for New Mexico to the Rio Grande Compact.
By hydrologist who is Interstate Stream Commission, Rio Grande Bureau. Hi, Madison Payne. I am geologist with the Interstate Stream Commission.
Good afternoon, I'm from Jagadish Simha, New Mexico Interstate Stream Commission. I'm the hydrology modeling lead for the Interstate Stream Commission.
And one more. Hi, I'm Michelle Hunter and I'm the deputy at the Interstate Stream Commission.
Thanks, everybody. We have a great team at Interstate Stream Commission. It looks like the Colorado folks are here too.
Wonderful. Welcome to Elton Butte Irrigation District. Thank you. Very happy to have you here today. So I'm not sure who to hand it off to.
You want to introduce your team?
Sure, I can introduce my team and myself. I'm Jason Ullman. I am Colorado State Engineer and Director of the Division of Water Resources as of 3.5 weeks ago. So really short period of time, but I'm happy to be down here to see. We've been doing a tour of the lower Rio Grande here. So you all know Craig Cotton, the division engineer from Division 3, and Chad, you want to introduce?
Yeah, Chad Wallace, I'm from the Colorado Attorney General's office. Preston Hartman, I'm also at the AG's office.
And
Dana Salter from Nathan's office.
and
Yeah, hi, I'm Heather Gunn. I manage the San Luis Valley Water Conservancy District.
I'm Cassandra McEwen with the Rio Grande Headwaters Restoration Project out of the San Luis Valley.
Daniel Boyce with the Rio Grande Headwaters Restoration Project as well.
Amber Pacheco, I'm with the Rio Grande Water Conservation District out of Alamosa.
Nathan Cole from the Canales Water Conservancy District.
Oh, Linda Tenorio, LRG Program Coordinator.
I know the rotaries in the Valley program has been a success.
Well, we thank you all for coming by. So, those who didn't hear, my name is Craig Davier. I'm a pecan farmer here in the Mesilla Valley, the current president of the board of directors at EBID. And we'll start with my colleagues.
Randy Groy, District 1, Hatch Valley, row crop farmer, chili, onions, alfalfa, corn, some pecan.
Preston Hart, District 3, farmer as well. James Sloan, District 5, we farm 15 miles south down here, just row crop and trees.
John Fleischer, Precinct 7, all trees now.
PK Colquitt, Precinct 8, I'm a pecan grower, from Anthony.
Henry Ludwig, Precinct 9, south end of the Elton Butte District. Row crop and tree grower.
So we appreciate the opportunities to come together and mingle, look for new ways to collaborate, look for new ways to cooperate, find ways that we can find solutions to our common interests. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to come by and see us and see where we meet in person, and to take a tour of our area and, you know, learn what the problems we face look like. So thank you all for being here. Mike, there, I was looking for Mike.
And we get to do this again this evening in over some more casual environment, right?
yeah.
Thanks to Bobby, setting that up for us.
Unfortunately, you all must have brought the wind with you. We had a wonderful week until you all got here. Then you were supposed to be on the 17th floor, open patio. We're trying to get it all moved inside, so the drinks will be cold though. Well, thank you for inviting us.
You're very, very welcome. And so to our three commissioners, is there anything you'd like to bring up and discuss while we're all here together?
We're gonna pound on the federal agencies that contact me.
Well, they're not here, you know.
There's nothing specific that I'm aware of, but I'll defer to my Texas counterpart. Is there anything that?
No, not that I have. I've been interested to hear everything New Mexico's been discussing, and things. I think they have a plan, some a little scary, some, some ideas that are very good. And I'm tickled that you all have already started to work with them and their understanding of the need to work with you all as well.
Thank you, Bobby.
And this is Jason's first contact meeting with your new hat on, and we welcome you, Jason, to the commission. And I did my first, meeting or first rodeo on this up in Alamosa. Up in, their country, a couple of years ago, so I know what he's going through, from a fire, but glad that they could come down and tour the system and see some of both the benefits of having it and the challenges of running it, right?
Indeed, indeed. Well, and you've been around looking at things today. Do you have any questions for us about what you've seen or why we do things a certain way?
Not that I can think of right now, but, very interesting, different than some of the irrigation practices we see in Colorado. We drove all the way along, not on I-25 to the big road, so. Great.
Greg, do you have three main diversion points in EBID?
So EBA, I would consider them four. Okay, one of them has has two diversions out of it. So we have the Perch Dam, which has its array heading. We have the Leesburg Dam and the Leesburg heading, and we have the Mesilla Dam, which has the east and the west side headings. Okay, all right. Oh, Samantha.
Since we have everyone in the room, it might be worth an announcement that we're going to be doing a headwaters tour with some of the federal government. I understand some of the state has been involved in going to attend that. Our board will be going to that with some of our staff, so hopefully that'll be another chance for a reunion, but to see things from the northern end.
Sam, is that the one in August? Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, they might not know about that yet. Some of you might not know about that yet. We're doing.
I'm looking forward to it now.
And then again, following on that, MRGCD and EBID started a collaborative coalition of Rio Grande water users last year. We had our inaugural meeting in Santa Fe. The meeting is gonna happen again this year in October in Santa Fe. We had some Colorado representation last year, so we're looking forward to more of that and maybe some Texas representation this year. Please, Commissioner.
She'll see.
We asked, and it was a lot to put together, last year with settlement stuff going on, lots of just everybody going after the federal money and whatnot, but ideally, we would get a compact commissioner panel talking about the river as a whole at that. So there's your request, and I'll follow up in writing.
We got our litigation behind us, makes it a lot easier.
It is behind us, Commissioner Scove. We are looking forward, right?
So I'd like to thank Commissioner Scove for bringing the Rio Grande Compact Commission meeting to El Paso, which affords us the opportunity to do this. It's a little far for you just to commute real quick from Austin to come see us or from Santa Fe to come see us here. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to have the commission meeting in our region, for y'all to be able to come and see an area that we all think is beautiful and very dear. And when you take a moment to have a cold drink in someone's backyard, it changes your perspective on your conflicts. And so I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Yeah, and you guys are headed down to Mesilla now on your way south? Are you gonna swing by the Corshane Bridge or?
Yeah, that's where we're hoping to
Oh,
go.
yeah, all right.
Oh, it's quite the sight.
I'll be interested to hear what your thoughts are on the measurability of that site too.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Well, thank you, Mike.
I like it.
We're gonna see it anyway. Well, very good.
Okay, so do we head on our way then?
I think that's about it. We still have some other business to deal, and then we're gonna see you all in El Paso.
Thanks for stopping by.
For the compact commissioners, we get a picture with our board of directors before you guys leave. The three of you, can we get a picture with our board of directors right here in the front? I think it's long. Yeah.
All right.
please.
Guys up front. Guys up front. Okay. Well, hopefully it's,
Where would you like to?
Well, squeeze in, because I want to get the sign that says there are no strangers here, so kind of file together. Henry, come over here. James, you're kind of tall, so maybe scoot in behind John or something. Okay, I don't have all faces. Ready? On three, say water. 1, 2, 3.
Water.
Okay, I'll send things out. Thank you, guys. This is so historic, Mike. Thank you. Oh my God. That's never happened before.
When the dust gets up here, the density comes over the plateau. So right now my wife and she'll say, "Yes, it's the way it goes."
Problem is that.
Yeah, maybe. Everything, so.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful until about around.
Right.
Hopefully you'll come back down, but you'll have more. Yeah.
It is a good week to be out here.
And you hear about all the people.
Yeah, it's a fast crop that everybody's turned to, but
It's really. That's it. I didn't generally sell.
yeah, how it developed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like somewhere.
No, I what you look at there are times when the visitors in the tree, but
I knew.
that's a cultural practice because you get the water out of the basic borders, how do you?
Been trying to do it for like 20 years.
Putting it in the tree, right?
Yeah.
Anyways,
We have a groundwater well.
They're still into it, but, yeah, very interesting. So that, like, I've been.
The more we can do with that.
But I will be around quite a while, so. These programs can be one of my assignments.
I'd like to say that the Rubicons requires one of the businesses, so we need to have some water. I appreciate
Yeah.
And
So.
you know, one of the things that and I don't know if I'm on the I'm also. Is that by municipality. But at some point, we've got to balance. what you need for agriculture, because it's really easy. I mean, like, you gotta, I don't know, and I don't know where that falls. I feel like we're not. Probably.
So I agree. Maybe kind of a farmer, maybe this is probably just like a. Farmers are good at adapting. That's when they start really reducing with water. And that's not. And so as there are other demands for water that are necessary. So, all right, well, we need to have different things of resources like 4 inches. How do we find ways that they meet both demand and resources. And so I'm optimistic. That will continue to happen. I suspect that we'll have these same concerns. You know, certainly 80 years ago, 90 years ago, during
it's all, again,
I think I can be, and I know, I like the things as well. We don't want to have, you know, it's not fair to the animals.
and the other later lessons like a table.
Around the big space, you know.
So they can get that.
I feel like it should be like hours for people that want everything. Same thing here. We want everything, by the way. We want it our way.
Yeah.
So I would agree. So if you have somebody that says, I want.
Another case, you know.
Somebody will be that. Somebody will be that. Requiring that for everybody. We will never see the people.
So you have that. So we can see then we won't have the whole. There's just different ways.
It's easy to lose sight of that. We are. Somebody will be. I have an issue with saying where I to manage, even though you have no ability to. Why? Yeah, recognizing that some innovate not be the summer. So we have to be cautious about creating boundaries that are necessary. Where those boundaries cause people to live, we got easy to wave a flag.
Alright, well, good. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you again.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, take care.
And I retired a year ago, so as manager. Thank you, you know, it's good. My wife gets it. They don't know where to take somebody. I know exactly where it goes.
Oh, yeah, I just know that.
My dad. So, you know, that wagons. Never thought of it.
Yeah, it's there's also the idea. Where, like,
That's where the road starts.
Same thing, we go.
Yeah, I gotta keep you. Yeah. I've gotta keep us all on track too. You gotta get us to your. No, I mean, no. Yeah, no. Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. I've been around here several times, but I've never been drunk. All right. Tonight. I will be there. Okay, see you.
It's all. Yeah, and I'm going to make sure. So it's good to show, consistent and policing.
I'll start back. Yeah. Yes.
Thanks.
Insurance. So with that, we are going back into closed session out of the previous motion. Thank you very much. We are back in open session. I will note that no topics were covered in closed session other than those on the agenda and made in the motion to go in closed session. I will accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion so made.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Claypool, seconded by Mr. Colquitt to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned.